Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every soul's journey when the winds of heaven begin to shift, when the atmosphere around you feels different, and when the quiet whisper of God grows louder than the noise of the world. Today, I stand before you to remind you that when God is preparing to give you something big, He never does it in silence. He sends signs, gentle, powerful, undeniable signs, guiding you, strengthening you, and preparing your spirit for the blessing your hands have not yet touched. This message is not just inspiration, it is confirmation. If you have been waiting, wrestling, or walking through a strange season, then listen closely. God is about to reveal something extraordinary in your life. When God shifts your relationships before He shifts your destiny, it is rarely loud, rarely obvious, and rarely something the human heart understands in the beginning. It often feels like confusion, like loss, like distance you didn't ask for, or like silence you don't know how to interpret. But in the divine realm, this is one of the clearest signs that heaven is orchestrating something extraordinary on your behalf. Every great spiritual elevation requires a purification of your circle, an adjustment of the voices around you, and a rearrangement of the people who walk beside you. Human beings often cling to the familiar, but God cannot place a new blessing inside a space that is filled with old noise, mismatched energy, or relationships that no longer carry the weight of your future. So He begins with great mercy and great precision by shifting the people around you, because before He changes your life, He changes your environment. You may notice that people you once depended on start pulling away, not because they hate you or because you did something wrong, but because their role in your story is complete. Sometimes God removes people not as punishment to them or pain for you, but simply because they cannot walk into the room that was built for your next season. Their mindset cannot handle the weight of your blessing. Their spirit cannot rise with the level of your calling, or their energy no longer aligns with the frequency of where God is taking you. And sometimes God loves you too much to let you carry the wrong people into a future that requires clarity, strength, and alignment. You may feel abandoned, but what you are actually being given is divine protection. What looks like loss is often the first gentle announcement that your destiny is changing shape. It is a strange thing to wake up and feel disconnected from people who once felt like home, but the soul senses shifts long before the mind understands them. You might find yourself craving more peace and less conversation, more solitude and less noise, more truth and fewer attachments. You may feel like certain friendships are fading, not because of conflict, but because the season that held them is ending. When God is elevating you, He removes distractions disguised as companionship, and He silences voices that kept you grounded in places you have outgrown. Sometimes the person you laughed with cannot hold your tears. Sometimes the one who cheered for your small victories cannot understand your larger purpose. And sometimes the one who stood with you in your past cannot comprehend the magnitude of your future. So God shifts them gently, quietly, naturally, until the separation feels like the only possible direction for your spirit. There will be moments when you question why people no longer call you the way they used to, why the invitations stop coming, why the conversations feel forced or shallow, why the connection feels thin. What you may not realize is that God is pruning your life the same way a gardener prunes a tree, removing the branches that drain life, shaping what remains so it can grow stronger, and allowing new growth to emerge where old weight once was. Pruning never feels pleasant to the tree, but it always prepares it for a season of greater fruit. Many of the relationships you lose during a divine shift were never meant to travel beyond the place they supported you in. They were companions for a chapter, not the entire story. And when the chapter ends, God closes it so your soul is not trapped in places it no longer belongs. There will also be moments where God brings new people into your life with such clarity and speed that you cannot deny His hand. These are people who understand your heart, without you having to explain it, who uplift your spirit with sincerity, who challenge you in healthy ways, who speak life into you rather than draining your confidence, who see your potential rather than competing with it. When God sends new people, they enter with peace, not confusion. They bring alignment, not chaos. They support your growth, not your stagnation. These individuals are not here to replace anyone, but to accompany you into the version of yourself that God has been shaping behind the scenes. They arrive as answers to prayers you may not have even prayed yet, standing beside you with a calmness that feels like destiny recognizing itself. Sometimes the shift in relationships is internal, not external. You may find your patience changing, your expectations changing, your boundaries strengthening, your tolerance lowering for things that drain your spirit. You may start to see the truth of people more clearly, their intentions, their honesty, their consistency. What you once accepted, you can no longer carry. What you once tolerated, you can no longer ignore. When God elevates your destiny, He elevates your discernment, and suddenly you see who is genuinely with you and who is only near you. This clarity is not meant to hurt you, but to protect you from misalignment that could delay your purpose. You cannot soar while holding hands with those who are committed to crawling. You cannot move into spiritual maturity while remaining surrounded by immaturity. You cannot rise with people who are comfortable watching you fall. So God allows you to see the truth, not to shame others, but to strengthen you. Another sign of this relational shift is the sudden appearance of tension where there was once comfort. You may find yourself irritated by things you used to ignore, drained by conversations that once entertained you, or uninterested in relationships that once consumed your time. This is because your soul is being pulled upward, while certain relationships remain grounded in places you no longer belong. You are not being unkind, you are being prepared. God is stretching your capacity for deeper purpose, and that means some connections will naturally loosen. Some friendships will not make it through the filter of destiny. Some people you love cannot go where God is taking you, not because they are bad, but because their assignment in your life has reached its completion. And while this shift can be painful, it is always purposeful. God removes not to punish, but to prepare. He shifts not to isolate you, but to elevate you. He distances you from certain people so He can bring you into alignment with those who match the magnitude of your calling. Divine elevation always requires divine separation. Before every blessing, God clears the path. Before every breakthrough, He clears the room. Before every new level, He clears the crowd. You may feel lonely in the in-between season, but loneliness is not the absence of people, it is the presence of transition. God often pulls you away from what was before revealing what will be. You are not losing people, you are shedding layers. You are not being abandoned, you are being positioned. You are not being rejected, you are being rerouted towards something larger, deeper, and more aligned with the destiny God has already written for you. And as this shift unfolds, you begin to realize that not every relationship that ends is a tragedy. Some endings are divine surgery, cutting away what would have poisoned your future. Some departures are divine timing, removing what would have delayed your blessing. Some separations are divine mercy, saving you from battles you never saw coming. God sees what you cannot see, hears what you do not hear, knows what you do not know. When He shifts relationships, it may look like chaos from your side, but it is perfect order from His. You begin to recognize that the changes you feared were actually the first signs that something extraordinary was being prepared for you. And once you understand this, you stop chasing people God is removing. Stop mourning what God is transforming. Stop holding tightly to what God is gently pulling away. You begin to trust the separation as much as you trust the blessing. You begin to honor the endings as much as you honor the beginnings. You begin to accept that the shifting of relationships is not a sign that you are being left behind, but that you are being lifted. You begin to understand that God does not take anything from your life unless it is standing between you and the greatness He has designed for you. And so the shift continues, quietly but powerfully, rearranging the people around you, reshaping your emotional landscape, rewriting your expectations, preparing your heart for the magnitude of what is coming next when you feel a divine restlessness rising inside you, a restlessness that you cannot explain with logic or language. Understand that it is one of the greatest signs that God is preparing to shift your life in a way you never expected. This restlessness is not anxiety, though it may feel like a stirring. It is not impatience, though it may feel like a pull. It is the quiet movement of your spirit sensing what your eyes cannot see yet. When God is about to give you something big, He awakens something deep within you first. You begin to feel uncomfortable in places where you once felt settled, unsatisfied with things that used to feel enough, unable to tolerate patterns you used to accept. Something inside you begins to whisper, there is more, even when you have no proof of what that more looks like. Divine restlessness is heaven's way of telling your soul to start walking before your mind understands where the road leads. You may find yourself pacing in your own life, feeling like you are waiting for something without knowing what exactly you are waiting for. You sense a shift but cannot name it. Conversations feel different, routines feel hollow, and even the familiar spaces feel too small for the size of the person you are becoming. This inner restlessness is not a flaw, it is preparation. It is God stretching your soul so it can hold the blessing that is on the way. He will not pour something big into a spirit that is still clinging to smallness, so He stirs you gently, quietly, insistently, until your spirit refuses to settle where it once rested. This uncomfortable feeling is actually an invitation to rise, to move, to grow beyond the edges of your current understanding. You are being prepared to handle more, to carry more, to receive more, and your soul knows it. Before you do, there are seasons when everything outside looks the same, yet everything inside feels different. You wake up with a sense that your life is shifting, even though nothing tangible has changed yet. This is because the spiritual realm always moves before the physical realm follows. God works in the unseen first. Your spirit receives the message before your circumstances reflect the promise. You start sensing that your purpose is expanding, your capacity is increasing, and your old life cannot contain the person you are becoming. This restlessness is the spiritual contraction before the birth of something greater. You are being enlarged internally before you are elevated externally. The uneasiness, the stirring, the discomfort are not signs of instability. They are signs of divine movement. When this restlessness enters your life, you may feel an urge to change things abruptly, your habits, your environment, your relationships, your goals. It feels like something inside you is pushing you out of a room you've outgrown. You may not know where to go, but you know you cannot stay where you are. It is like living in a house that suddenly feels too tight around you, even though nothing about the walls has changed. That is because the change is happening within you. God is enlarging your spirit, expanding your vision, deepening your understanding, and refining your desires. What once satisfied you now feels incomplete. What once comforted you now feels limiting. What once energized you now feels dull. This is the holy discontent that God uses to move you toward your next season. There are moments when you try to return to old habits, old conversations, old environments, but something within you refuses to fit back into those spaces. You may even try to force yourself to feel the same, but you cannot. Your spirit has already outgrown what your mind is still trying to hold on to. Divine restlessness is not a sign that something is wrong with your life. It is a sign that something is right with your destiny. You are being pulled by something bigger than your past and pushed by something deeper than your current reality. You are in the spiritual hallway between who you used to be and who you are becoming. The door behind you has closed, and the door ahead of you has not opened yet, but your soul knows it is coming, and it refuses to let you settle. You may notice yourself craving change without knowing what needs to change. You may feel a hunger for growth without knowing what direction to grow in. You may feel a spiritual alertness that makes you pay attention to things you used to ignore. Divine restlessness sharpens your discernment. It makes you notice the heaviness of certain people, the emptiness of certain routines, the hollowness of certain habits. You begin to see how some parts of your life have been blocking your expansion. You begin to realize that certain mindsets you carried were too small for the blessing God is preparing. You begin to feel the weight of the purpose you have not yet stepped into. This restlessness teaches you to move differently, think differently, expect differently. It is God adjusting your posture so you are ready to receive what He is sending. Sometimes this restlessness makes you feel disconnected from the things you once enjoyed. Activities you once loved feel draining. Conversations you once entertained feel shallow. Environments that once felt safe now feel constricting. Your soul begins to crave depth, purpose, meaning, and truth. You want to talk about things that matter. You want to build things that last. You want to walk in alignment rather than convenience. This shift inside you is a sign that your spirit recognizes a new level approaching. You are becoming more sensitive to what is real, what is divine, what is purposeful. You start paying closer attention to the whispers of God, the nudges of intuition, the quiet inner voice that guides you. Sensitivity is not imagination. It is preparation. There will be moments when everything around you feels like it is falling apart. But what is actually happening is that God is pulling apart the pieces that no longer match your destiny. The restlessness you feel is the tension between who you are and who you are becoming. You may feel torn between holding on and letting go, between comfort and calling, between familiarity and faith. But this inner stretch is necessary. It is God creating space for the blessing that is too large for your old mindset. When God prepares to give you something big, He first disrupts your comfort so you are not tempted to settle. He shakes your environment so you are not tempted to stay in places that cannot hold your promise. He stirs your spirit so you are willing to walk into the unknown with trust instead of fear. This divine restlessness also affects your dreams. You may dream more intensely, more vividly, with symbols and meanings you feel deeply, even if you cannot explain them. Your subconscious becomes more active because your spirit is communicating what your mind is not yet ready to process. God uses dreams to reveal direction, to confirm movement, to awaken awareness. Your nights become classrooms for your destiny. Your sleep becomes sacred territory where your future is whispered into your soul. This shift in your dream life is not accidental. It is part of the preparation for something big. You may also feel a sudden push toward discipline, clarity, or change. You might wake up wanting to clean your space, reorganize your priorities, reevaluate your choices, or set new boundaries. This desire is not random. It is God removing the clutter from your life, both internally and externally, so the blessing He is bringing does not sit on chaos. Your spirit begins to crave order, structure, and purity. You start to release habits that drain you and embrace habits that strengthen you. You begin to notice how your time, energy, and focus matter more than they ever did before. This shift is the soul making room for what is coming. Divine restlessness also brings a new kind of courage, a quiet courage, a courage that wakes up inside you and whispers that you cannot stay small anymore, a courage that pushes you to try what you previously feared, a courage that nudges you to take risks you once avoided. You begin to feel boldness rising where insecurity once lived. You begin to feel clarity replacing confusion, strength replacing hesitation, faith replacing doubt. This courage is not loud or dramatic. It is steady, calm, and deeply rooted. It is the courage of someone who senses that their life is about to change and wants to be ready for it. You may feel emotionally sensitive, spiritually alert, mentally awakened. Things affect you differently. You hear deeper. You feel deeper. You understand quicker. You connect the dots faster. Your intuition becomes sharper. Your awareness becomes stronger. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is spiritual alignment. It is God fine-tuning your inner frequency so you can recognize the blessing when it arrives. You begin to understand the difference between noise and guidance, between pressure and purpose, between distraction and direction. This clarity is a sign of preparation. Divine restlessness also brings a mysterious kind of confidence, the kind that tells you something good is coming even when you have no proof. You may start saying things like, "I don't know why, but I feel like something is about to happen." That feeling is not delusion. It is spiritual foresight. It is your soul recognizing what your eyes cannot see yet. When God prepares to give you something big, He lets your spirit taste it before your hands touch it. The restlessness becomes the confirmation that something is shifting, something is aligning, something is being released in your favor. When closed doors begin appearing in your life, doors you were certain would open, doors you prayed over, doors you waited for, doors you hoped would carry you into your next chapter, it is one of the clearest signs that God is protecting you rather than rejecting you. The human heart often interprets a closed door as failure, as a sign of weakness, as evidence that you are not worthy or not prepared. But spiritually, a closed door is an act of divine mercy. It is God stepping between you and something that would have drained you, delayed you, diminished you, or destroyed you. Every blessing has a boundary, and God knows which paths lead to purpose and which paths lead to pain disguised as opportunity. When He closes a door, it is not because you are unqualified. It is because the door you wanted was too small for the life He is preparing for you. There are times when you find yourself knocking on doors that refuse to move, even though you push them with all your strength. You may send applications, make phone calls, take risks, put in effort, do everything right, and still the door remains locked. That kind of silence is not punishment. It is protection. God sees the whole path, the corners you cannot see, the intentions you cannot sense, the consequences you cannot anticipate. Sometimes the job you thought would secure your future would have drained your spirit. Sometimes the person you wanted to build with would have broken your peace. Sometimes the opportunity you thought was your big break would have been your biggest burden. And because God loves you, He says no when your heart desperately wants Him to say yes. A closed door is His way of keeping you aligned with the blessing that was designed specifically for you. There will be moments when doors start closing in a pattern that feels too consistent to be coincidence. People distance themselves. Opportunities fall apart at the last moment. Plans collapse unexpectedly. What once felt open now feels blocked. When this pattern appears, know that heaven is adjusting your direction. You may think you are losing options, but in truth, your path is being narrowed into purpose. God is guiding you toward the exact place where your breakthrough lives. He is eliminating distractions that could pull you off your destiny. You are not being reduced, you are being refined. When the wrong doors close, they push you into the right ones. When wrong people exit, they make space for the right ones. When wrong plans stop working, they create room for the divine plan that was always waiting. Closed doors also reveal truths you could not have discovered any other way. When someone rejects you, ignores you, fails to appreciate you, or chooses someone else over you, it exposes the limits of their ability to value who you are becoming. They may have liked you, but they were not built to love the version of you that God is calling forth. They may have admired you, but they could not hold your purpose. They may have supported you for a season, but they could not walk with you into the next one. Closed doors show you who was never meant to stay, who lacked the capacity to walk with you, who was comfortable with the old you, but intimidated by the unfolding version of you. God closes these connections not out of cruelty, but out of compassion. He knows that holding on to the wrong person can make you miss the right blessing. There is a kind of closed door that comes with deep disappointment. You may cry over it, grieve over it, question God over it, ask why it didn't work out, wonder what you did wrong. But divine rejection is divine redirection. When God blocks something, it is because He is preparing something greater. The tears you shed over a closed door are not signs of defeat, they are seeds of the future. Every closed door plants something in your spirit, a new strength, a new perspective, a new awareness you would not have gained if life had gone the way you wanted. Closed doors force you to grow in ways comfort never could. They break you open so God can rebuild you stronger. They humble you so God can lift you higher. They shift your focus from what you lost to what you are about to gain. Sometimes a closed door is not a denial, but a delay. Something you want may not be denied forever. It may simply not be ready yet. Or you may not be ready for it. God will not open a door prematurely because premature blessings can become heavy burdens. A blessing launched too early can crush your spirit instead of elevating it. So God closes the door until the timing aligns with His plan. You may be prepared externally, but not internally, or the opportunity may be perfect, but the environment around you is not yet positioned to support your growth. God orchestrates everything with precision. When He closes a door temporarily, it is because He is aligning the right people, the right timing, the right environment, and the right version of you. Delay is not denial, it is divine timing. In motion, closed doors also awaken your discernment. They teach you to differentiate between what you want and what your spirit needs. They make you question why you were drawn to a particular path, whether it was desire, desperation, habit, or ego that guided you. Closed doors expose the motives behind your decisions. Sometimes you chase opportunities out of fear, not purpose. Sometimes you pursue relationships out of loneliness, not alignment. Sometimes you cling to plans out of pride, not conviction. A closed door forces you to look inward, to evaluate what truly resonates with your soul, to refine what you want versus what God wants for you. This self-awareness becomes one of the greatest spiritual gifts you receive during a season of rejection. There are moments when a closed door comes suddenly, without warning. You may feel blindsided, but sudden closure often saves you from long-term suffering. What ends abruptly is often what God saw unfolding in ways that would have harmed you later. He stops it before it has the chance to break you deeper. God's no is sometimes the rescue you didn't know you needed. You may not see the danger, the deception, the drain, or the emotional weight that would have followed, but God sees it clearly. He shuts the door swiftly to protect your peace, your heart, your future, your calling. Closed doors refine your faith like nothing else. It is easy to trust God when everything is opening. It is harder to trust Him when everything feels like it is closing. But these moments are where faith grows its deepest roots. This is where you learn that God is good even when life is confusing. This is where you learn to trust His timing even when the wait feels long. This is where you learn to surrender control, to release expectations, to stop forcing what no longer fits your life. Closed doors push you into deeper surrender. They teach you to rely not on your strength, but on God's direction. They guide you to stop chasing what is not meant for you and start preparing for what is. You may notice that when one door closes, your spirit becomes more sensitive to the new direction God is pointing you toward. You begin to feel subtle nudges, gentle whispers, intuitive pulls guiding you. Some ideas enter your mind repeatedly, not as random thoughts, but as divine suggestions. Some opportunities appear unexpectedly, not as accidents, but as new pathways. Some desires awaken within you that feel deeply aligned with who you truly are. Closed doors sharpen this awareness. They make you watch more closely, listen more deeply, feel more accurately. Your spirit becomes tuned to God's frequency, and you begin to sense where He is leading you, long before the new door opens. There is also a kind of peace that comes after the hurt of a closed door, a quiet knowing that settles in your spirit. You may not understand what God is doing, but you begin to trust that He is doing something. You begin to sense that the door closing was not the end of your story, but the beginning of a reroute. You start to feel lighter, freer, more aligned. The pressure to force things disappears. The urge to chase stops. You stop trying to revive what God has released. You stop begging for what was never meant for you. You step into a calmer way of living, one rooted in trust rather than fear, surrender rather than control. This peace is a sign that your spirit is aligning with God's. Next move, closed doors teach you to walk by faith instead of sight. They teach you that God's no has just as much love in it as His yes. They teach you that rejection is not a reflection of your worth, but a redirection toward your purpose. They teach you that you do not need every door to open, only the ones God has ordained for you. They teach you that the path to something big is often paved with interruptions, redirections, and unexpected endings. They teach you that God is guiding you toward a blessing that requires the removal of everything that could interfere with it.